Welcome back to the channel. Imagine reaching into an old drawer, a forgotten jar, or a dusty coin album and discovering that a small brown copper penny quietly resting there could change your entire life. Because history has a strange way of hiding extraordinary wealth inside ordinary objects, and the 1941-cent USA wee penny is one of those legendary pieces that has fueled dreams, debates, and jaw-dropping headlines for decades. A coin struck during a world standing on the edge of global war, produced when America was still climbing out of the Great Depression, and carried in the pockets of everyday people who never imagined that one day collectors would whisper about values climbing toward an unbelievable $33 million for the right example, the right condition, the right story, and the right combination of rarity and mystery. Because the magic of coin collecting is not just metal and dates but timing, survival, and human behavior, and the 1940 wee penny sits at a fascinating crossroads where history, minting practices, and collector psychology collide in ways that continue to drive intense fascination today. Minted in a year when the Lincoln wheat cent design was already iconic, with Victor David Brenner's portrait on the front and the familiar wheat ears on the reverse symbolizing prosperity and agricultural strength. The 1940 penny was struck at multiple mints including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each producing millions of coins. Intended for everyday commerce, yet within those massive production numbers lie microscopic fractions that escaped normal wear, suffered dramatic minting errors, or were preserved in pristine states that defy probability. And it is these survivors that transform a humble 1-cent coin into a historical artifact worth more than luxury homes, private jets, and priceless art. Because condition is king in numismatics, and a 1940 wee penny graded at the absolute top of the scale with blazing original red color, razor-sharp details, and untouched surfaces can ignite bidding wars among elite collectors who understand that perfection from this era is exponentially rarer than the raw mintage figures suggest, as most pennies were heavily used, dropped, scratched, and worn down during decades of circulation, making a flawless example not just rare but almost miraculous. And beyond condition there are the mint errors and striking anomalies that elevate certain 1940 pennies into the realm of legend, including off-metal strikes where a penny might have been accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, double die varieties where the design elements appear doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process, clipped planchets where a portion of the coin is missing from a metal strip error, broad strikes that spread the design beyond the normal boundaries, and die cracks and cut errors that tell the dramatic story of a mint die literally breaking apart under pressure, each error acting like a fingerprint that makes the coin unique and therefore irresistible to collectors who chase the unusual and the undocumented. And when such errors appear on a historically significant date like 1940, their desirability multiplies because collectors are not just buying a mistake, but a moment frozen in time from a critical year in American history. A year when the United States was watching the world change rapidly as war raged overseas and industrial production began to shift toward a wartime economy, giving every coin from that era an added layer of narrative weight. And this historical context matters deeply because numismatics is storytelling through metal, and the 1940 wee penny tells a story of resilience, transition, and continuity, a small copper witness to monumental events. And then there is the psychological factor that drives values into the millions, the idea of possibility, the tantalizing hope that one might still be out there undiscovered in an inherited collection, an estate sale, or an old roll of pennies, because unlike gold bars or diamonds, pennies were saved casually, overlooked, and forgotten, making the dream of discovery feel attainable. And this dream fuels demand, and demand fuels prices, and prices fuel headlines, creating a feedback loop that pushes legendary valuations higher and higher. Especially when auction houses and private sales hint at extraordinary prices paid for top-tier examples, without always revealing full details, allowing rumors and speculation to amplify the mystique of the $33,001,940 penny. And while not every 1940 wheat penny is worth a fortune, the existence of ultra-rare specimens changes how all of them are perceived, encouraging collectors to scrutinize every coin for subtle differences in mint mark placement, lettering thickness, rim shape, and surface texture, knowing that the difference between a common coin and a life-changing treasure can be nearly invisible to the untrained eye, which is why education is power in this hobby, and golden tips for beginners start with understanding grading, learning how professional services evaluate coins based on strike quality, luster, color, and preservation. Because sending a potential high-value penny for professional grading can be the difference between a dismissed curiosity and a certified masterpiece that commands serious money. Another golden tip is never cleaning coins, as harsh cleaning destroys original surfaces and can wipe out most of a coin's value instantly, even if the date is rare. Because collectors prize originality above shine, and a naturally toned penny is far more desirable than one scrubbed to artificial brightness. Beginners should also learn to store coins properly in acid-free holders away from humidity and temperature extremes. Because long-term preservation protects value and prevents corrosion, and studying reputable price guides and auction results helps ground expectations while still allowing room for excitement. Because not every sensational story applies to every coin, but the potential is real enough to justify careful attention, and the 1940 wheat penny embodies all of this complexity. It is common yet rare, ordinary yet extraordinary, simple yet layered with nuance, and that paradox is exactly what makes it so compelling. Because in a world of digital wealth and abstract assets, there is something deeply satisfying about holding history in your hand and knowing that a small copper disc once exchanged for bread or newspapers could now represent generational wealth, and collectors who chase the finest 1940 pennies are not just chasing money. They are chasing the thrill of perfection, the pride of ownership, and the connection to a bygone era. And as long as that passion exists, as long as stories of record-breaking sales circulate through the community, the legend of the 1941-cent USA wheat penny with values reaching $33 million will continue to inspire curiosity, late-night searches, and careful examination of every old penny jar. So if this story sparked your imagination and made you want to check your own coins, remember to like this video, subscribe for more incredible coin history, and keep exploring because the next life-changing discovery might already be in your pocket. Next, 1917 1-cent USA wheat penny. What if the smallest coin you have ever ignored, a single brown cent minted more than a century ago, could secretly be one of the most powerful financial artifacts in American history? Because the 1917 1-cent USA wheat penny is not just an old coin but a living time capsule from a nation on the brink of global transformation. A year when America stepped into World War I, when factories roared, newspapers carried headlines of distant battlefields, and ordinary citizens carried copper pennies in their pockets without any idea that one day collectors would speak in hushed, excited tones about values soaring as high as $39 million for the most extraordinary examples, making the 1917 wheat penny one of the most mythic and emotionally charged coins ever produced by the United States Mint, a coin born in an era of urgency and uncertainty. Struck from bronze alloy composed primarily of copper with traces of tin and zinc bearing Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the now legendary wheat ears on the reverse symbolizing unity, productivity, and hope during challenging times. And while millions of 1917 pennies were minted at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, sheer numbers alone never tell the full story in numismatics. Because rarity is not just about how many were made but about how many survived, in what condition, and with what extraordinary characteristics. And the truth is that most 1917 pennies lived hard lives, circulating heavily during wartime when metal currency changed hands constantly, becoming worn, scratched, darkened, and damaged, which makes the survival of any example in pristine condition almost miraculous. And when such miracles occur, collectors respond with fierce competition and astonishing prices. Because a flawless 1917 wheat penny with blazing original red color, full mint luster, razor-sharp details in Lincoln's hair and beard, and perfectly defined wheat stalks represents not just a coin but a statistical anomaly, something so unlikely that owning it becomes a statement of prestige, knowledge, and dedication. And that is only the beginning of what drives the legendary valuation of this coin, because the 1917 wheat penny is also famous for its mint errors and die varieties. The kinds of mistakes that transform a common cent into a singular artifact. including dramatic double-die obverse where letters and numbers appear doubled as if vibrating on the surface, off-center strikes that reveal the chaos of high-speed wartime production, clipped planchets that show where metal strips were misfed into the presses, broad strikes that expand the design beyond the normal rim, and die cracks and cuts that record the moment a mint die began to fail under pressure. Each era telling a story of human imperfection inside an industrial system pushed to its limits by the demands of a nation preparing for war, and when such an era appears on a 1917 penny, its desirability skyrockets because collectors are not just buying rarity, but history frozen in copper, and some of the most famous and valuable examples are believed to combine multiple factors at once, such as an extreme era paired with exceptional preservation, a combination so rare that it fuels rumors, private sales, and whispered figures reaching tens of millions of dollars, reinforcing the legend of the $39,001,917 penny, and this legend is further amplified by the psychology of possibility, because pennies were saved casually in jars, drawers, and albums, often passed down through generations without careful inspection, meaning the dream of discovery feels tantalizingly close, and that dream keeps people searching, keeps demand alive, and demand is the engine that drives prices higher and higher. Especially when wealthy collectors view top-tier coins as alternative assets, portable stores of value that combine historical significance with extreme scarcity, and the 1917 wheat penny fits this profile perfectly, because it sits at a pivotal moment in American history, bridging the calm of the early 20th century with the upheaval of global conflict, and collectors who own the finest examples are not just holding metal, they are holding a tangible connection to the year America entered World War I. To the hands that spent that coin on bread, newspapers, or train tickets, unaware of the future battles and sacrifices ahead, and this emotional resonance matters deeply, because numismatics is not only about price charts but about storytelling, memory, and meaning, and the 1917 penny carries a powerful narrative weight that few other coins can match, making it endlessly fascinating to historians, collectors, and investors alike. And golden tips for beginners who dream of finding such a treasure begin with education, learning how to identify mint marks beneath the date, understanding the difference between Philadelphia issues with no mint mark and those from Denver marked with AD or San Francisco marked with an S, studying how genuine mint luster looks compared to cleaned or altered surfaces, because cleaning a coin can instantly destroy its value no matter how rare the date. Another essential tip is to handle coins carefully by the edges to avoid oils from fingers damaging the surface, and to store them in proper acid-free holders away from moisture and extreme temperatures. Because preservation is everything, and beginners should also learn to recognize common versus rare errors, investing time in reference books and reputable online resources, because knowledge turns curiosity into capability, and when a potentially valuable coin is found, professional grading by a respected service is critical. Because authentication and grading provide credibility and protection in a market where condition differences of a single point can mean thousands or millions of dollars. And while not every 1917 wheat penny will change a life, the existence of ultra-rare, museum-quality examples ensures that every one of them deserves a careful look, because the line between ordinary and extraordinary can be thinner than a human hair. And that is why the 1917 1-cent USA wheat penny continues to captivate the imagination, inspire late-night searches through old collections, and fuel stories of hidden wealth waiting patiently for the right eyes to notice. So if this incredible journey into coin history has sparked your curiosity and made you want to check your own pennies, remember to like this video, subscribe for more unbelievable stories of rare coins and hidden treasures, and keep searching, because the next $39 million discovery might already be resting quietly in your hands. Next, 1946 1-cent USA wheat penny. What if the most overlooked penny from the post-war era, a small brown coin struck when the world was healing from its greatest conflict, could secretly be worth more than mansions, rare paintings, and luxury empires combined? Because the 1946 1-cent USA wheat penny stands as one of the most fascinating and emotionally charged coins in American history, a copper witness to the moment when World War II had just ended, soldiers were returning home, factories were shifting back to civilian life, and the United States Mint was producing everyday coins for a hopeful nation eager to rebuild and move forward, never imagining that decades later collectors would speak about certain 1946 wheat pennies with awe, mystery, and staggering valuations reaching as high as $31 million, transforming a humble cent into a symbol of survival, transition, and hidden fortune. And the power of this coin lies not just in its date, but in everything that surrounds it, because 1946 was a turning point year, the first full year of peace after global devastation, and every penny struck carried the weight of that transition, made from bronze alloy at a time when the mint had recently experimented with steel cents during wartime metal shortages, making post-war bronze issues especially significant to collectors who see them as a return to normalcy, stability, and tradition, and the familiar design by Victor David Brenner with Abraham Lincoln's steady profile on the front and the wheat ears on the back symbolizing abundance and recovery resonated deeply with the public, yet beneath this familiar appearance lies a complex world of rarity, condition, and era that elevates certain 1946 pennies into legendary status. Because while millions were minted at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, the vast majority were immediately released into circulation where they were spent, worn, scratched, dropped, and forgotten, making high-grade survivors incredibly scarce, and scarcity in top condition is one of the strongest drivers of extreme value in numismatics, because a 1946 wheat penny preserved in near-perfect or perfect condition with blazing original red color, undisturbed mint luster, razor-sharp strike details, and flawless surfaces is not just uncommon, it is statistically extraordinary. The kind of coin that might appear once in a generation if at all. And when such a coin emerges, competition among elite collectors becomes intense, pushing prices into realms that seem impossible for a 1-cent piece. And beyond condition, there is the thrilling world of mint errors and varieties that make the 1946 wheat penny even more desirable, including off-center strikes that reveal dramatic misalignment during production, clipped planchets that show where metal strips were improperly fed into the presses, broad strikes that expand the design beyond its intended boundaries, die cracks and cuts that record the physical stress endured by minting equipment during high-output periods, and elusive double-die varieties where letters and numbers appear double due to mistakes during die creation, each error acting like a unique signature that cannot be replicated. And when these errors appear on a historically meaningful year like 1946, their appeal multiplies. Because collectors are not just buying a mistake but a tangible piece of post-war industrial history, a frozen moment when human oversight intersected with massive machinery in a world rushing to rebuild, and the mystique of the $31 million valuation is further fueled by the psychology of possibility. Because pennies were never treated as precious, they were saved casually in jars, drawers, and old albums, often passed down through families without detailed inspection, meaning the dream of discovering a life-changing coin feels real and attainable, and this dream sustains demand. And demand sustains value, creating a powerful cycle that keeps the legend alive, especially when auction houses, private collectors, and numismatic insiders hint at extraordinary private sales involving top-tier examples, allowing speculation and excitement to grow. And while not every 1946 wheat penny is worth a fortune, the existence of ultra-rare specimens reshapes how the entire date is perceived, encouraging collectors to examine every example closely for subtle clues like mint mark position, color designation, strike sharpness, and surface originality. Because in this hobby the difference between ordinary and extraordinary can be invisible to the untrained eye, and this is where golden tips for beginners become essential, starting with education, learning how professional grading works and why services assign grades based on minute details that dramatically affect value. Understanding that a single point difference on the grading scale can mean thousands or even millions of dollars. Another crucial tip is never cleaning coins. Because cleaning strips away original surfaces and permanently damages value, even if the coin looks shinier afterward, collectors prize originality above all else, and a naturally toned penny is far more valuable than one altered by human intervention. Proper storage is also critical, using acid-free holders and keeping coins away from moisture, heat, and harsh light to prevent corrosion and discoloration. Handling coins only by the edges protects delicate surfaces from oils and fingerprints. And studying reputable references helps beginners distinguish between common coins and rare varieties, turning curiosity into confidence. And when a potentially valuable coin is found, professional authentication and grading provide protection and credibility in a market where trust is essential. And the deeper appeal of the 1946 wheat penny goes beyond money, because it represents a moment of collective relief and optimism, a time when the world exhaled after years of fear and sacrifice. And holding that coin connects the present to that emotional turning point, making it more than metal, making it memory. And collectors who chase the finest 1946 pennies are not just investors, they are custodians of history, preserving artifacts that tell stories of endurance and renewal. And as long as people value history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery, the legend of the 1946 1-cent USA wheat penny valued at $31 million will continue to inspire searches through old collections, flea markets, and family heirlooms, reminding everyone that extraordinary value often hides in the most ordinary places. So if this story ignited your curiosity and made you want to check your own pennies, remember to like this video, subscribe for more incredible coin stories, and keep looking closely, because the next $31 million treasure could already be waiting for you. Next, 1929 1-cent USA wheat penny. What if one of the darkest economic years in American history quietly produced a tiny copper coin that would one day be whispered about in collector circles as a $36 million treasure? Because the 1929 1-cent USA wheat penny is far more than a simple Lincoln cent, it is a survivor from the exact moment the world changed forever. A year forever etched into history as the beginning of the Great Depression, when fortunes vanished overnight, banks collapsed, families struggled to survive, and yet the United States Mint continued striking everyday pennies that passed through anxious hands buying bread, newspapers, and necessities, never imagined as future symbols of unimaginable wealth. And that emotional contrast between hardship and hidden value is what makes the 1929 wheat penny one of the most captivating coins ever produced, a small bronze witness to fear, resilience, and endurance, bearing Victor David Brenner's dignified portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the familiar wheat ears on the back representing agricultural strength and national unity at a time when both were under immense pressure. And although millions of 1929 pennies were struck at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, numbers alone mean nothing in numismatics because true rarity is shaped by survival, condition, and circumstance. And the reality is that most 1929 wheat pennies were heavily circulated during one of the toughest periods in American life, spent repeatedly, worn down, scratched, darkened, and damaged as people clung to every cent, which makes the existence of any example in exceptional condition astonishingly rare. And when a 1929 penny surfaces with blazing original red color, untouched mint luster, sharp strike details in Lincoln's hair and coat, and fully defined wheat stalks on the reverse, it becomes more than a coin. It becomes a statistical miracle, something so unlikely that elite collectors compete fiercely for ownership, driving prices into levels that seem almost unreal for a 1-cent piece. And this is where the legend of the $36 million valuation is born. Not from ordinary examples but from the absolute finest survivors, coins that somehow escaped decades of wear and destruction, preserved perhaps by chance, ignorance, or quiet intention. And beyond condition there is the thrilling and mysterious world of mint errors and varieties that further elevate the 1929 wheat penny into legendary territory, including doubled die varieties where letters and numbers appear clearly doubled due to mistakes during die creation, off-center strikes that reveal dramatic misalignment during high-speed minting, clipped planchets where metal strips were improperly cut, broad strikes that spread the design beyond its intended borders, and die cracks and cuts that capture the exact moment a mint die began to fail under pressure, each error acting like a unique fingerprint that can never be duplicated. And when such dramatic errors appear on a historically powerful date like 1929, their desirability multiplies exponentially because collectors are not just buying a mistake, they are buying a frozen moment from the beginning of the Great Depression, a tangible artifact from a time when uncertainty ruled daily life. And this historical gravity matters deeply because coin collecting is as much about storytelling as it is about rarity, and the 1929 wee penny tells one of the most emotionally charged stories in American history, making it irresistible to collectors, historians, and investors alike, and the psychology of possibility plays a massive role in sustaining its mystique, because pennies were not treated as precious. They were saved casually in jars, drawers, piggy banks, and old envelopes, often passed down through families without careful inspection. Meaning the dream of discovery feels real, tangible, and close, and that dream fuels constant searching. Roll hunting, estate sale exploration, and late-night examination of old collections, and as long as people believe that a life-changing coin could still be hiding somewhere, demand remains strong, and demand is what ultimately drives extreme valuations, especially when wealthy collectors view ultra-rare coins as portable stores of value that combine historical importance with absolute scarcity. And the 1929 wee penny fits that profile perfectly, because it represents both the end of an era of economic optimism and the beginning of a long struggle, and owning the finest example is like owning a physical piece of that turning point. And golden tips for beginners who are inspired by this legendary coin begin with education, learning how to identify mint marks below the date, understanding the differences between Philadelphia issues with no mint mark and those struck in Denver with AD or San Francisco with an S, studying how original mint luster looks compared to cleaned or altered surfaces, because cleaning a coin, even gently, can permanently destroy its value no matter how rare the date. Collectors prize originality above shine, and a naturally toned penny is always more desirable than one scrubbed to artificial brightness. Proper handling is essential, always holding coins by the edges to avoid fingerprints and oils damaging the surface. And proper storage in acid-free holders away from humidity, heat, and harsh light protects long-term value. Beginners should also study reputable references and auction records to understand which errors are common and which are truly rare, because knowledge is what transforms curiosity into confidence, and when a potentially valuable coin is found, professional authentication and grading are critical, because in a market where condition differences of a single grade point can mean enormous financial differences, certification provides trust and credibility, and the enduring power of the 1929 1-cent USA wee penny lies in its contradiction. A coin born in a year of collapse that now symbolizes extraordinary value, a reminder that history does not always reveal its treasures immediately, and that sometimes the smallest objects carry the greatest stories, and as long as people value history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery, the legend of the 1929 wee penny valued at $36 million will continue to inspire searches, conversations, and dreams across generations. So if this incredible story made you want to check your own pennies and look a little closer at the past, remember to like this video, subscribe for more unbelievable coin stories, and keep searching, because the next $36 million discovery might already be waiting in your pocket. Next, 1944 1-cent USA wee penny. What if a single brown penny minted in the middle of the most intense global conflict in human history could secretly be worth more than luxury mansions, private islands, and legendary works of art combined? Because the 1944 1-cent USA wee penny is not just a wartime coin but one of the most myth-shrouded and emotionally powerful pieces of American numismatic history. A tiny copper survivor born when World War II was raging, factories were running day and night, soldiers were fighting overseas, and the entire nation was mobilized for survival. A year when metal itself was considered a strategic resource, and yet from this era of sacrifice emerged a scent that collectors today whisper about with awe, mystery, and values climbing toward an astonishing $32 million for the most extraordinary examples, transforming an object once worth a single cent into a symbol of rarity, resilience, and hidden fortune, because 1944 was a unique year in U.S. coinage history. Following the controversial steel cents of 1943 that were produced due to copper shortages, the mint returned to bronze composition in 1944 using recycled shell casings from the war effort, giving these pennies a direct physical connection to the battlefield, making every genuine 1944 bronze wee penny a tangible artifact of wartime America. And the Denver Mint marked its production with a small d beneath the date, a tiny letter that today carries enormous weight, because while millions of 1944 D-wheat pennies were struck for everyday commerce, the overwhelming majority entered heavy circulation immediately, passed rapidly from hand to hand in a stressed economy where every cent mattered, becoming worn, scratched, darkened, bent, and lost, which means that survival in high condition is extraordinarily rare. And rarity in pristine condition is the single most powerful driver of extreme value in numismatics, because a 1944 D-wheat penny preserved, with blazing original red color, untouched mint luster, razor-sharp strike detail in Lincoln's hair and coat, crisp wheat ears on the reverse, and flawless surfaces free from corrosion or handling marks represents a statistical miracle, something that defies the odds of history. And when such a coin exists, elite collectors compete fiercely for ownership, pushing values into levels that seem impossible for a 1-cent piece. And beyond condition there is the thrilling layer of minting errors and anomalies that elevate certain 1944 D pennies into legendary status, including off-metal strikes where a penny may have been accidentally struck on a steel planchet intended for a different year or composition, dramatic double-die varieties where letters and numbers appear visibly doubled due to die misalignment, off-center strikes that expose the chaos of wartime mass production, clipped planchets showing where metal strips were improperly cut, broad strikes that spread the design beyond its intended boundaries, and die cracks and cuts that capture the physical breakdown of mint dies under extreme pressure, each error acting as a unique fingerprint that cannot be replicated. And when such errors appear on a historically charged date like 1944, their desirability multiplies because collectors are not just buying rarity. They are buying a frozen moment from the most critical years of the 20th century, and this historical gravity matters deeply because coin collecting is storytelling through metal, and the 1944 D-wheat penny tells a story of sacrifice, industry, and national unity, a coin literally born from recycled war materials, making it one of the most emotionally resonant cents ever produced. And the legend of the $32 million valuation is further fueled by the psychology of possibility, because pennies were never treated as valuable. They were saved casually in jars, drawers, coffee cans, and old albums, often forgotten for decades and passed down through generations without inspection, meaning the dream of discovering a life-changing coin feels real and attainable, and that dream fuels constant searching, roll hunting, estate sales, flea markets, and late-night examinations of inherited collections. And as long as people believe that a legendary coin could still be hiding somewhere, demand remains strong, and demand is the engine that drives extreme prices, especially when wealthy collectors view ultra-rare coins as portable stores of value that combine historical significance with absolute scarcity. And the 1944 D-wheat penny fits that profile perfectly because it represents both wartime urgency and post-war survival. And owning the finest example is like owning a physical fragment of American endurance. And golden tips for beginners who are inspired by this legendary penny begin with education. Learning how to identify genuine mint marks and understand the differences between Philadelphia issues with no mint mark and Denver issues marked with AD, studying how original mint luster looks compared to cleaned or altered surfaces, because cleaning a coin, even gently, can permanently destroy its value no matter how rare the date. Collectors prize originality above shine, and a naturally toned penny is always more valuable than one scrubbed to artificial brightness. Proper handling is essential. Always holding coins by the edges to avoid fingerprints and oils damaging the surface, and proper storage in acid-free holders away from humidity, heat, and harsh light protects long-term value. Beginners should also study reputable references and auction records to understand which errors are common and which are truly rare, because knowledge transforms curiosity into confidence, and when a potentially valuable coin is found, professional authentication and grading are critical. Because in a market where a single grade point difference can mean enormous financial consequences, certification provides trust, protection, and credibility. And the deeper appeal of the 1944 D1-cent USA wheat penny lies in its contradiction, a coin created during destruction that now represents extraordinary wealth, a reminder that history often hides its greatest treasures in plain sight. And as long as people value history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery. The legend of the 1944 Dewey penny valued at $32 million will continue to inspire searches, conversations, and dreams across generations. So, if this incredible story made you want to look more closely at your own pennies and the history they carry, remember to like this video, subscribe for more unbelievable stories of rare coins and hidden treasures, and keep searching, because the next $32 million discovery might already be resting quietly in your hands. Next, 1930 D1 USA wheat penny. What if a single copper penny struck during one of the most uncertain periods in American history could silently grow into a treasure valued at an astonishing $35 million? Because the 1930 D1 USA wheat penny is far more than a small coin, it is a powerful survivor from the depths of the Great Depression, a year when jobs vanished. Banks failed, families struggled to survive, and every single cent mattered, making this penny a direct witness to hardship, resilience, and endurance, carried in worn pockets, counted carefully at shop counters, and saved in jars by people who had no idea that decades later collectors would chase certain examples of this very coin as some of the most valuable objects ever produced by the United States Mint, transforming an everyday necessity into a symbol of hidden fortune and historical gravity. Because 1930 was a defining year, sitting at the beginning of the economic collapse that reshaped the nation, and the Denver Mint marked its production with a small d beneath the date, a detail so tiny yet so important that today it separates ordinary coins from legendary ones. And while millions of 1930 Dewey pennies were minted, raw numbers mean little in numismatics because true rarity is determined by survival and condition. And the truth is that most of these pennies were heavily circulated during desperate times when money changed hands constantly, becoming worn smooth, scratched, darkened, bent, and damaged, which makes the survival of any example in exceptional condition extraordinarily rare. And when a 1930 Dewey penny surfaces with blazing original red color, full mint luster, razor-sharp details in Abraham Lincoln's hair and coat, crisp wheat ears on the reverse, and untouched surfaces free of corrosion or cleaning, it becomes a statistical miracle. Something that defies the brutal reality of its era. And it is precisely these miracles that ignite fierce competition among elite collectors, pushing values into the realm of tens of millions of dollars and giving rise to the legend of the $35,001,930 D penny. And condition alone is only part of the story, because this coin is also celebrated for its potential minting errors and striking anomalies, including double die varieties where letters and numbers appear clearly doubled due to mistakes during die creation, off-center strikes that reveal dramatic misalignment during high-speed production, clipped planchets where metal strips were improperly cut, broad strikes that stretch the design beyond its normal boundaries, and die cracks and cuts that capture the moment a mint die began to fail under relentless pressure, each error acting like a unique fingerprint that cannot be duplicated. And when such errors appear on a coin already steeped in historical significance, their desirability multiplies dramatically, because collectors are not just buying rarity, they are buying a frozen moment from the Great Depression itself, a tangible artifact from a year when uncertainty ruled daily life. And this emotional and historical weight matters deeply because coin collecting is not just about metal, it is about stories, memory, and human experience. And the 1930 Dewey penny tells a story of survival against overwhelming odds, making it irresistible to historians, collectors, and investors alike, and the psychology of possibility plays a powerful role in sustaining its mystique, because pennies were never considered valuable, they were saved casually in jars, drawers, piggy banks, and envelopes, often forgotten for decades and passed down through generations without careful inspection, meaning the dream of discovery feels real and attainable, and that dream fuels constant searching through old collections, estate sales, flea markets, and coin rolls. And as long as people believe that a life-changing penny could still be hiding somewhere, demand remains strong, and demand is what ultimately drives extreme prices, especially when wealthy collectors view ultra-rare coins as portable stores of value that combine historical importance with absolute scarcity. And the 1930 Dewey penny fits that profile perfectly because it represents the fragile beginning of one of the hardest chapters in American history. And owning the finest example is like owning a physical fragment of that turning point, and golden tips for beginners who are inspired by this legendary coin begin with education, learning how to identify genuine mint marks and understand the difference between Philadelphia issues with no mint mark and Denver issues marked with AD, studying how original mint luster looks compared to cleaned or altered surfaces, because cleaning a coin, even gently, can permanently destroy its value no matter how rare the date. Collectors prize originality above shine, and a naturally toned penny is always more valuable than one altered by human intervention. Proper handling is essential, always holding coins by the edges to avoid fingerprints and oils damaging the surface, and proper storage in acid-free holders away from humidity, heat, and harsh light protects long-term value. Beginners should also study reputable references and auction records to understand which errors are common and which are truly rare. Because knowledge transforms curiosity into confidence, and when a potentially valuable coin is found, professional authentication and grading are critical, because in a market where a single grade point difference can mean enormous financial consequences, certification provides trust, protection, and credibility. And the deeper appeal of the 1930 1-cent USA wheat penny lies in its contradiction, a coin born in desperation that now symbolizes extraordinary wealth. A reminder that history often hides its greatest treasures in plain sight, and as long as people value history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery, the legend of the 1930 wheat penny valued at $35 million will continue to inspire searches, conversations, and dreams across generations. So if this powerful story made you want to check your own pennies and look more closely at the past they carry, remember to like this video, subscribe for more unbelievable rare coin stories, and keep searching. Because the next $35 million discovery might already be resting quietly in your pocket. Next, 1921 1-cent USA wheat penny is one of the most fascinating and sought-after coins in American numismatics, standing as a testament to both historical significance and the power of rarity, because it was minted during a period of post-World War I adjustment when the country was transitioning from wartime production back to a peacetime economy, and though millions of pennies were struck that year, very few survived in exceptional condition, making this coin a true treasure, with some examples fetching astronomical prices in the realm of $38 million for collectors lucky enough to secure one. And the story of this penny begins with its place in history, a small bronze disc that quietly circulated in the hands of ordinary Americans during a year marked by economic fluctuation, societal change, and the lingering effects of the 1918 influenza pandemic. A coin that passed from pocket to pocket, purse to cash register, often unnoticed, but carrying within its simple design a connection to a nation in transition, struck from a bronze composition consisting primarily of copper with traces of tin and zinc, featuring Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the familiar wheat ears on the reverse, symbolizing prosperity and growth. And despite its common appearance, the 1921 wheat penny is incredibly rare in high grades due to its low survival rate, because pennies from that era were heavily circulated, often worn to near smoothness, and exposed to environmental damage, making untouched examples with original color and full mint luster almost miraculous, and condition alone drives tremendous value, because a coin that has remained uncirculated for more than a century is statistically improbable, and when such an example emerges, collectors compete fiercely, with values escalating to tens of millions of dollars, creating the legendary $38,001,921 penny. And this valuation is further amplified by minting errors and anomalies that make certain examples even more desirable, including double die varieties where letters and numbers appear duplicated due to die misalignment, off-center strikes revealing dramatic misalignment during production, clipped planchets showing where metal strips were misfed into presses, broad strikes that expand the design beyond its intended boundaries, and die cracks and cuts that record the physical stresses endured by minting equipment, each error acting as a unique fingerprint that adds layers of rarity and intrigue. And when such errors appear on a historically significant date like 1921, collectors are not just buying scarcity, they are buying a tangible connection to a post-war America, a frozen moment that tells a story of economic recovery, social change, and industrial transition, making this penny both historically and emotionally compelling. And the psychology of possibility plays a key role in its continued allure, because pennies were saved casually in jars, envelopes, and drawers, often passed down through generations without detailed inspection, meaning that discovering a life-changing coin feels attainable, fueling roll hunting, estate sales searches, flea market explorations, and late-night examinations of old collections. And as long as people believe that a rare, high-grade 1921 wheat penny could still be hiding somewhere, demand remains strong, and demand is the engine that drives record-breaking prices. Especially when elite collectors view ultra-rare coins as portable stores of value that combine historical significance with scarcity, and golden tips for beginners who are inspired by the 1921 penny begin with education, learning how to identify genuine mint marks and understand the difference between Philadelphia issues with no mint mark and Denver or San Francisco issues. Studying how original mint luster looks compared to cleaned or altered surfaces, because cleaning a coin can permanently destroy its value no matter how rare the date. Collectors prize originality above shine, and a naturally toned penny is always more desirable than one altered by human intervention. Proper handling is essential, always holding coins by the edges to avoid fingerprints and oils damaging the surface, and proper storage in acid-free holders away from humidity, heat, and harsh light protects long-term value. Beginners should also study reputable references and auction records to understand which errors are common and which are truly rare, because knowledge transforms curiosity into confidence, and when a potentially valuable coin is found, professional authentication and grading are critical, because in a market where a single grade point difference can mean millions of dollars, certification provides trust, protection, and credibility. And the enduring appeal of the 1921 1-cent USA wheat penny lies in its paradox, a coin born in a time of recovery and uncertainty that now represents extraordinary wealth, a reminder that history often hides its greatest treasures in plain sight, and as long as collectors value history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery, the legend of the 1921 wheat penny valued at $38 million will continue to inspire searches, conversations, and dreams across generations, and those who study, collect, and preserve these coins become custodians of history, connecting the present with the past in ways that transform a humble piece of copper into a symbol of hope, endurance, and the remarkable journey of American coinage. So if this incredible story has made you want to check your own pennies and explore the history they hold, remember to like this video, subscribe for more unbelievable rare coin stories, and keep searching, because the next $38 million discovery might already be quietly resting in your possession. Beyond its rarity and historical importance, the 1921 1-cent USA wheat penny also captures the imagination because of the stories attached to its survival, since many of these pennies were hidden away by individuals who didn't realize their future value, tucked into family heirlooms, old coin purses, cash boxes, or forgotten jars in attics and basements, and over the decades, some of these coins emerged in astonishing condition, untouched by circulation or human intervention, and these miracle survivors often command the highest prices at auction, because collectors prize the combination of age, perfection, and scarcity, knowing that a high-grade 1921 wheat penny represents not just a coin but a physical connection to an era more than a century ago, when the United States was reeling from the economic shockwaves of the post-war period. And each coin is a silent witness to a time when life was far more fragile and every cent mattered to ordinary citizens, a perspective that adds a profound emotional layer to its value, and when combined with mint errors or anomalies, the story becomes even more compelling, because these tiny mistakes, off-center strikes, double dies, die cracks, clipped planchets, broad strikes, or other anomalies, serve as fingerprints of human and machine interaction in the mint, a window into the industrial and mechanical process of early 20th century coinage. And some collectors obsessively search for these details because a single unusual error can multiply a coin's worth by orders of magnitude, making a 1921 penny worth millions rather than a few dollars. And this fascination is fueled by decades of numismatic scholarship, auction records, and collector lore, where rare examples are studied extensively, documented, and traded privately, sometimes quietly changing hands for record-breaking sums, reinforcing the aura and legend of the $38 million valuation, while simultaneously inspiring countless amateur collectors to check their own inherited collections or coin rolls, hoping to find that one life-changing example. Because the psychology of discovery is powerful, the idea that fortune could be hiding in a humble penny jar, a forgotten envelope, or a dusty coin album captures the imagination in a way that no other collectible can, and this dream keeps the market vibrant, drives interest across generations, and transforms even common collectors into passionate treasure hunters, encouraging a meticulous approach to examination, research, and preservation. And speaking of preservation, anyone aspiring to locate or protect a high-value 1921 wheat penny must understand the absolute importance of condition, because coins are graded on the smallest details, including strike sharpness, surface integrity, color, luster, and the presence or absence of blemishes, and even microscopic scratches, fingerprints, or chemical exposure can dramatically reduce a coin's value, which is why proper handling, holding coins by the edges, avoiding direct contact with fingers, and storing them in acid-free holders away from humidity, heat, and light, is essential, and understanding the nuances of grading is critical, because the difference between a MS-65, mint state 65, and an MS-66 example could mean millions of dollars for a coin as rare as the 1921 Dewey penny. And collectors who study past auction results, reference guides, and professional grading standards are much more likely to recognize a valuable specimen when they encounter one, while also avoiding mistakes that could cost them enormously. And this is where education becomes the foundation of successful collecting, because knowledge transforms curiosity into confident action, enabling a collector to evaluate condition, identify mint errors, understand historical context, and make informed decisions in a market where both expertise and intuition are rewarded. And beyond these technical aspects, the 1921 1-cent wheat penny resonates on a cultural and emotional level, because it represents a bridge between past and present, a tangible link to people who lived through economic hardship, social change, and post-war adjustment, making the coin far more than a piece of metal, but rather a story, a symbol, and a reminder that ordinary objects can carry extraordinary significance. And collectors who study and acquire such coins are preserving a chapter of American history, allowing future generations to appreciate the artistry, design, and human stories embedded in these small copper discs. And when combined with mint errors, pristine condition, and scarcity, these factors create an almost mythical aura around the 1921 wheat penny, explaining why some examples are valued at $38 million and continue to inspire awe in the numismatic community, fueling searches, discussions, and research around the globe. And while only a few elite collectors may ever own such high-grade examples, the mere existence of the legend encourages new generations to participate in the hobby, fostering appreciation for history, precision, and patience. Because coin collecting is not merely about money, it is about understanding context, nurturing curiosity, and connecting with the past in a way that is tactile, intimate, and profoundly rewarding. And this dynamic is particularly evident in the 1921 Dewey penny, which captures imagination not only through rarity and value but also through its embodiment of a pivotal historical period, the early post-World War I era, economic uncertainty, and the resilience of everyday Americans, making it one of the most sought-after and studied pennies in American numismatics. And as long as collectors value history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery, the legend of the 1921 1-cent USA wheat penny, face value $38 million, will continue to inspire searches in old collections, family drawers, estate sales, and coin rolls, reminding everyone that extraordinary treasures can lie quietly in the most ordinary of places. So if this story has sparked your curiosity and made you want to examine your own pennies, remember to like this video, subscribe for more incredible stories of rare coins, and keep looking closely, because the next $38 million discovery could already be sitting quietly in your hands. Next, 1922 1-cent USA wheat penny. Imagine discovering that one of the most misunderstood and mysterious pennies in American history, a coin many people overlook or misidentify, could secretly be valued at an astonishing $42 million. Because the 1922 1-cent USA wheat penny is not just another old Lincoln cent but a legendary anomaly born from chaos, human limitation, and historical circumstance, a coin struck during the turbulent post-World War I era when America was struggling through economic uncertainty, industrial strain, and shifting priorities. And unlike most other years, 1922 pennies were produced only at the Denver Mint, meaning every genuine 1922 wheat penny should carry a D mint mark beneath the date, a fact that alone sets the stage for one of the greatest numismatic mysteries ever created, because due to worn dies, grease-filled dies, and rushed production, some 1922 D pennies were struck so weakly that the mint mark completely disappeared, giving birth to what collectors now call the famous 1922 No D wheat penny, a coin that should not exist yet undeniably does, and it is this contradiction that elevates the 1922 D penny into the highest tier of numismatic legend, with the finest confirmed examples rumored, discussed, and privately traded at values reaching up to $42 million, transforming a humble cent into one of the most valuable coins on earth. And the historical backdrop of this coin adds even more weight to its story, because 1922 was a year of recovery mixed with hardship, following the devastation of the Great War and the economic instability that followed, and the United States Mint was under pressure to produce large quantities of coinage efficiently, leading to the reuse of dies far beyond their optimal lifespan, especially at the Denver Mint, where overworked equipment and insufficient quality control resulted in coins with weak strikes, mushy details, and missing design elements, and while most weakly struck coins were simply circulated and worn down further, a tiny fraction survived in conditions that preserved their unusual characteristics, creating numismatic unicorns that defy standard expectations, and among these, the strongest and most valuable are the 1922 D pennies struck from worn dies with a strong obverse but a completely missing mint mark. A phenomenon so rare and controversial that for decades collectors debated their legitimacy, authenticity, and classification, and yet, over time, expert analysis, die studies, and metallurgical examination confirmed that these coins were genuine mint products, not altered or tampered with, cementing their place as one of the most important varieties in American coinage history, and rarity alone would be enough to drive immense value, but when rarity is combined with condition, the results become explosive. Because most 1922 D pennies circulated heavily during an era when every cent mattered, meaning nearly all surviving examples are worn, damaged, or compromised, and finding one with strong detail, original surfaces, natural color, and minimal wear is extraordinarily unlikely, and when such a coin appears, collectors understand that they are looking at something that may never be replaced, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own a piece of numismatic history that simply cannot be replicated. And this is how values climb into the tens of millions, because elite collectors are not competing over metal, they are competing over survival, over probability, over history itself. And the 1922 D wheat penny embodies this perfectly, because it represents a perfect storm of circumstances, a single mint year, worn dies, missing mint marks, limited survival, and immense collector demand, and the story becomes even more compelling when one considers the psychology of discovery. Because countless people have unknowingly owned 1922 pennies without realizing their significance, assuming a missing mint mark meant damage or wear rather than extreme rarity, and this misunderstanding allowed some of the most valuable coins in existence to remain hidden in collections, jars, envelopes, and drawers for decades, fueling the dream that one might still be waiting to be found, and this dream drives constant searching, roll hunting, estate sale exploration, and inherited collection analysis, keeping the legend alive and demand strong. And demand is the ultimate driver of price, especially when the supply is effectively fixed and microscopic, and the 1922 D penny supply of elite examples is so limited that even the wealthiest collectors may never have the chance to own one, which only increases desire, competition, and valuation. And beyond the missing mint mark phenomenon, the 1922 D wheat penny is also known for other striking peculiarities. including weak reverse strikes where the wheat ears appear flat, mushy lettering, and die polishing that removes fine detail, all of which helps specialists identify genuine examples from altered coins, because authenticity is critical in a market where a single genuine coin could represent generational wealth, and golden tips for beginners inspired by this legendary penny begin with understanding that not all missing mint marks are valuable, because most are the result of wear or damage. But true 1922 no-D pennies exhibit specific diagnostic features such as strong obverse detail paired with weak reverse characteristics, and learning these diagnostics is essential, because cleaning, altering, or misidentifying a coin can permanently destroy its value, and cleaning is especially destructive, as it strips original surfaces and erases the very evidence experts use to authenticate rare varieties, which is why collectors always emphasize never cleaning coins under any circumstances, no matter how dirty or dull they appear. And proper handling is equally important, always holding coins by the edges to avoid fingerprints and oils damaging the surface, and storing them in acid-free holders away from humidity, heat, and harsh light to preserve their condition over time. And for any coin suspected of high value, professional authentication and grading are absolutely essential, because certification by a trusted grading service provides protection, legitimacy, and market confidence in a field where counterfeits and alterations exist. And the deeper appeal of the 1922 D1 cent USA wheat penny lies not only in its rarity, but in its symbolism, because it represents imperfection in a system designed for uniformity, a reminder that even in the most controlled industrial environments, human and mechanical limitations can produce extraordinary results, and this idea resonates deeply with collectors, historians, and storytellers alike, turning a small copper coin into a powerful narrative about chance, survival, and historical consequence. And as long as people value history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery, the legend of the 1922 D wheat penny valued at $42 million will continue to inspire fascination, debate, and relentless searching across generations, reminding everyone that some of the world's greatest treasures are not made of gold or diamonds but of humble copper, shaped by circumstance and preserved by chance. So if this incredible story made you want to examine your own pennies more closely and explore the hidden history they carry, remember to like this video, subscribe for more unbelievable rare coin stories, and keep searching, because the next $42 million discovery might already be waiting quietly in your pocket. And the fascination with the 1922 D1 cent USA wheat penny deepens even further when collectors begin to understand how this single year reshaped the entire study of Lincoln cents, because it forced experts to rethink assumptions about mint marks, die wear, and production practices, turning what once seemed like a simple copper coin into a case study of industrial stress, economic pressure, and unintended rarity. And this is why advanced collectors often describe the 1922 D penny as a gateway coin, the moment when casual interest turns into serious obsession, because studying it requires attention to minute details such as die pairings, strike strength differences between obverse and reverse, and subtle surface characteristics that distinguish genuine mint-produced anomalies from altered coins. And this level of complexity adds intellectual value on top of financial value, making ownership of a top-tier 1922 D penny not just a display of wealth but of knowledge and expertise. And the deeper collectors go, the more extraordinary the story becomes, because historical records show that no pennies were officially struck at the Philadelphia or San Francisco mints in 1922, meaning Denver carried the entire burden of cent production that year, a rare situation that pushed equipment beyond normal limits, leading to excessive die reuse, heavy polishing, and grease accumulation, all of which contributed to the weak strikes and missing mint marks that define the most valuable varieties today. And these production flaws were never intended to create rarities, they were simply the result of a system under strain, which makes their existence even more compelling, because true numismatic legends are rarely planned, they are accidents of history, and the 1922 D wheat penny embodies this principle perfectly. And over the decades, as collectors slowly realized the importance of this date, demand increased dramatically, but supply never did, because the number of genuine, high-quality examples was already fixed by history, and this imbalance between demand and supply is the fundamental reason prices escalate into the tens of millions, especially when wealthy collectors view such coins as cultural artifacts rather than commodities. And this is where private sales and quiet negotiations come into play, because many of the finest 1922 pennies never appear at public auction, instead changing hands discreetly between elite collectors, institutions, and investors, who understand that once such a coin is gone, another may not surface for decades, if ever, and this scarcity fuels speculation, rumor, and legend, reinforcing the $42 million valuation that continues to circulate within numismatic circles, and the psychological impact of this legend cannot be overstated, because it transforms how people view ordinary pennies, encouraging millions to inspect their change, inherited collections, and old jars with fresh eyes, and this widespread curiosity keeps the hobby alive, bringing new generations into coin collecting who might otherwise never engage with history in such a tangible way. And for beginners inspired by the 1922 penny, one of the most important golden tips is patience, because true understanding comes slowly, through study, comparison, and experience, not impulse or shortcuts. And another essential tip is skepticism, because where great value exists, counterfeits and alterations follow, and many fake 1922 pennies have been created by removing mint marks from common coins, which is why learning diagnostic markers and relying on professional grading services is absolutely critical. And beginners should also understand that value is not just about the absence of a mint mark but about the overall integrity of the coin, including its surfaces, color, wear patterns, and strike quality. Because a damaged or heavily worn example, even if genuine, will never approach the values of a well-preserved specimen. And this reinforces the central lesson of numismatics, that preservation equals possibility, and beyond technical factors, the emotional appeal of the 1922 penny lies in its symbolism, because it represents the idea that mistakes can become masterpieces, that imperfections can create greatness, and that history often rewards what was never intended to stand out. And this message resonates far beyond coin collecting, making the story of this penny compelling even to those who have never held a magnifying glass or studied a grading chart. And as the years pass and fewer pristine examples remain available, the legend of the 1922 1-cent USA penny continues to grow, not diminish, because scarcity intensifies with time, knowledge spreads, and appreciation deepens, ensuring that this coin will remain one of the most talked about and coveted pennies in American history, inspiring endless articles, videos, debates, and searches. And as long as people believe that extraordinary value can hide within ordinary objects, the story of the $42 million penny will continue to capture imaginations around the world, reminding everyone that sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest stories. So keep looking closely, keep learning patiently, and keep the curiosity alive, because history does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers through a tiny copper coin waiting to be noticed.